We are all, in a way, searching, aren't we? Searching for meaning, for connection, for something that resonates deep within our souls. It strikes me, as I reflect on the human experience, that so much of our lives is shaped by our relationships. From the very beginning, our connection to our mothers, the pulse and rhythm of the cosmos, establishes a pattern of connectedness that we carry with us throughout our lives. Yet, from that very beginning, we are also thrust into separation. We are torn from the mother, separated from the cosmos, separated from the gods, separated, it would seem, forever. And this separation, this wound of existence, it reverberates through all of our relationships. It becomes the hidden agenda, the unspoken yearning to return to a state of lost connectedness. We want to go home again. We are all on our own Eden project, trying to reconnect. We seek the beloved, the one who will mend our wounds, the magical other who will make everything right. But as we search, we must ask ourselves, is this what relationships are truly about? Is this all that we are after? In our quest for connection, we often fall into the trap of projection. We project our hopes, our needs, our wounds onto others. We see in them what we long to see in ourselves, the missing pieces of our own fractured selves. It's a grand illusion, a romantic fantasy that fuels so much of popular culture, a religion of romance that promises transcendence. We convince ourselves that there is one perfect person who will understand us completely, meet our every need, and heal all the broken parts of our hearts. But alas, we are almost always, inevitably, disappointed. The other, it turns out, is simply a fellow human being, flawed, imperfect, with his or her own set of wounds and longings. And so the cycle begins anew. We bring to every relationship the weight of our personal histories, the wounds of the past, the complexities of our family dynamics. We are all, in a sense, carrying around a collection of complexes, charged images from our past that have the power to shape our present reality. These complexes, formed in our earliest relationships, become the lens through which we see ourselves and others. They can usurp our ego position and alter our sense of reality. Think about the child who experiences engulfment, whose boundaries are constantly invaded by the emotional states of the parents. Or the child who experiences abandonment, left feeling alone and unseen. These early wounds, these experiences of too muchness or not enoughness, become the templates for our later relationships. We may consciously seek something different, but unconsciously, we are often drawn to repeat the familiar patterns of our past. The abused child may find himself with an abuser. The child of an alcoholic may bond with an addictive personality. The need for control may stem from early feelings of powerlessness. Consider the person who feels an overwhelming sense of responsibility, the parentified child who is driven to care for others. They become the burden bearer, the go-between and mediator. They try to maintain the equilibrium of their families by ensuring they are needed and doing what they think their parents require. These are not choices as such, but rather patterns that play out beneath the surface. And what about this thing we call love? We use the word so freely and in so many ways. Is it just the sexual excitement of the young, the habituation of the middle-aged, or the mutual dependence of the old, as the poet John Sirte quipped? Or is it that force that makes the world go round, the magic elixir without which we perish? The Greeks knew it as eros, a powerful force that can both create and destroy. Intimate love carries a far higher charge than the love we feel for our friends. It is often laced with fascination, a desire for exclusivity, and sexual desire. Intimacy can also include a greater willingness to champion the cause of the other and a readiness for personal sacrifice. But love, whatever it may be, is often not the determining value in marriage. In fact, many marriages have been arranged simply to produce, protect, and nurture the young. Many have sought a good parent in their partner, or a familiar abuser to confirm a wounded sense of self. Some seek power, a transferred power they did not possess in their own childhoods. These unconscious motivations often drive our choices. And so, we search relentlessly for the magical other. We embark on the great quest, seeking a partner who will fulfill our deepest longings. It's a story we see repeated in countless songs and films. The Bridges of Madison County. The fated, fabulous stranger arrives, grants us transcendence, then disappears. No partner, no matter how worthy, can compete with that fantasy. We need to understand that the other person is not the source of our happiness. Rather, the potential for happiness lies within us. And yet, our culture tells a different story, doesn't it? It tells us that if we just find the right person, everything will fall into place. It's a powerful myth that leads us on a never-ending search. We all long to merge with the other, to be protected, nurtured, and saved. But in this longing for fusion, we often lose sight of our own individual journey. This pattern repeats itself in our professional lives as well. We bring these relational patterns into our workplaces, seeking the same connections, the same sense of belonging, the same validation. But as one human resources director bluntly told new employees, the company does not love you. It rents your behavior only so long as that behavior is productive and makes money for the corporation. Work, it seems, is often devoid of soul, lacking the vertical dimension that gives us a sense of meaning and participation in something larger than ourselves. We try to make a community, but find only a society focused on a product or a service, not the people who provide it. We bring our own anxieties into the corporate environment. Some who have suffered the wound of abandonment will seek praise and toady up to superiors. Others who need power and control will become aggressive and sabotage the collective effort. These are the echoes of our past, playing out in the present. And the style of an organization, the level of its health, is often a reflection of its leadership. If the leader is stuck psychologically, the corporation will also be stuck. The path to a more meaningful existence requires that we become more aware of how our past shapes our present behavior. It demands an awareness of the projections, the patterns, the complexes that drive our interactions with others. We must become conscious of our wounds, not to dwell on them, but to understand how they influence our choices and perceptions. We must learn to withdraw our projections, to see the other person as they truly are, a separate individual with their own unique journey. This is a difficult task, for as nothing is more painful than the disappointment of projected hope, nothing is more intoxicating than its arousal. It means taking responsibility for our own emotions, our own needs, our own happiness. We must ask ourselves, what am I asking of this other person that I ought to be doing for myself? This process of self-discovery can be challenging, and it requires both courage and will. The truth is, we have all internalized our experiences with our primal objects, most specifically our mother and father. As such, our inherent nature is influenced, channeled, and sometimes warped, so that we become the creature of necessary adaptations. The price of socialization, both Jung and Freud observed, is neurosis. Each adaptation moves us further from the garden, from the state of innocent connectedness. It might appear that I am painting a rather bleak picture of relationships, but I assure you, this is not the case. Rather, I am advocating for a more conscious approach, a more mature understanding of how relationships actually work. We must realize that all relationships at their root start with separation. We must confront the fear, the anxiety, the sense of incompleteness that drives so many of our choices. We are, after all, on our own individual journey. Our greatest gift to those we claim to love is to free them for their own journeys, to release them from the burden of our expectations. This also means freeing ourselves from the burden of trying to find ourselves in another, a task which is destined to fail. We must be mindful of the energy we bring to any relationship and recognize how much of that energy is derived from our past. All of life is relational, and the quality of our relationships is a direct reflection of the relationship we have with ourselves. And that relationship has been shaped by the patterns of our past with our families and in society. Moreover, we must also be aware of the human tendency to seek to control what cannot, and perhaps should not, be controlled. As we tend to avoid what makes us uncomfortable, we are seldom conscious of the way we enact sundry power ploys. Thus, the problem of power is always present, as is the shadow. It is not a question of whether the shadow is at work in a relationship, but how conscious we are of it, and how deleterious its effects. We do not want to see the woundedness, the vulnerability, or the fear. Perhaps the most significant step we can all take is to acknowledge the profound influence of our early experiences with our parents. These parental imagos, the internalized images of our parents, continue to shape our sense of self and our expectations of others. These complexes, the charged energy of these early relationships, have the power to determine the character of all our subsequent connections. We must also recognize the dynamic of submissiveness, which tacitly acknowledges a diminution of our own power. We may rationalize this as congeniality, concern for the other, and we may even end up in severe codependence. This state can result in the annihilation of legitimate self-interest. We must confront our fears, our insecurities, and our vulnerabilities with honesty and compassion. We must recognize that a secret dynamic that stirs the problem of power is always fear. And sometimes we seek to control the external world through means such as our bodies or the tidiness of our homes. Some may dissociate, transfer their fears into their bodies, or remain effectively flat, because if one is not there, one cannot be hurt. But we are not alone on this journey. We can offer each other encouragement, compassion, even great assistance. But we cannot take on another's journey any more than another can die our death for us. If they cannot die our death, why should they live our lives? Individuation, the process of becoming who we are meant to be, is the difficult work that each of us must do. And despite all the projections and all the woundedness, there remains an element of wonder and awe in our relationship with others. In the encounter with the other, we have intimations of the gods, glimpses of the sacred. The other is the holy other, and in the presence of the holy other, we may sense the sacred energies of the cosmos. As such, relationship is, and always will be, a sacred vehicle toward ourselves. We seek wholeness, a unification of all the parts of ourselves. It is not a destination but rather a journey, a continuous process of growth and transformation. This journey requires many deaths through departure, many losses of the other, and many enlargements through suffering. Our task is to confront the neediness and the expectations that can sabotage our relationships and replace them with consciousness. If we truly love the other, we must allow them to be the other and not a mirror of our own selves. As St. Augustine said, love is wanting the other to be. It's not about happiness, it's about transformation. Happiness is fleeting, transient, always slipping from our grasp. But true love is about allowing the other to be, and by doing that, we grow, we deepen, and we are transformed. We are here to become who we are meant to be. The path of individuation is a difficult one. It demands an energy larger and tougher than the narcissism of the Eden Project. It can be humbling, terrifying at times, but it is always an invitation to the enlargement of meaning. It is not the work of the ego, though ego can support or hinder it. We must also be mindful of the power of our wounds and how we are identified with our wounds. We must be careful not to be defined solely by our suffering, and to also recognize the energy that is available to us. We must understand as well that when we use another to avoid our own task, the soul will not be mocked. It will protest through physical ailments, activated complexes, and disturbing dreams. And yet, we long to be merged and subsumed. We long to be rescued by our magical other, the one who will protect us from suffering and spare us the perilous journey of individuation. But these are the very things we must do for ourselves. We may long for the simplicity and security of a preconscious union with the other, but that is not available to us. Mother is dead, forever and ever. We must have the courage to simply be, to answer the call of our individual journey. By being our best selves, we are of the greatest help to our partners, and we free them from our impossible expectations. This may be properly called love, but it is light years away from being in love. This journey of individuation is a call to courage, a heroic task that demands our full engagement. It is an invitation to be present to the here and now, to fully embrace our lives. By doing so, we relieve others of our impossible expectations. We share the best person we can be, and that is the most meaningful gift. In this, we honor them. We must also be aware of how we exercise power over the other and deny their individuality, violate their souls, and push them away. The concept of the shadow is helpful here. We are often blind to our own power ploys, even as we recognize them in our partners. It is easy to get caught in the cycle of projection and disappointment, but we must also remember that there is a wonderful side of projection. It can spur the release of energies that might otherwise lie dormant. It is often the very energy that fuels the artist, the entrepreneur, the auto mechanic, and the waitress. The other person is not, and can never be, the source of the energy that leads to our own creativity. And as we strive to be more conscious, it is important to acknowledge that it is not life's inevitable wounding that damages our relationships, but the precepts and strategies we bring to the table from our personal histories. These strategies become the patterns, the unconscious programs that shape our relationships. It is not enough to change a behavior or alter a cognition. The wound to the soul will simply find another way to express itself. As we navigate the complexities of our relationships, we must also seek to engage with our spirituality. Spirituality that is not necessarily in a religious sense, but in the sense of seeking connection with that which is larger than ourselves, the cosmic other that is always available. The journey of spirituality is a search for meaning, for a way to connect with the invisible world that animates the visible one. It's a way to experience the mystery that enlarges consciousness. We should be tracking that which resonates with our own souls, an inner tuning fork that lets us know that soul is present. It is an autonomous other that seeks to connect with us. It's about finding those images, be they effects, sensations, dreams, or external phenomena that resonate with our souls. The image is not the God, but the vehicle of the God, a way to experience the mystery. It's in that mystery that we connect to the divine, which resides not only out there, but also within ourselves. For as it is often noted, when the gods left Olympus, they entered the gut. And so, our gods have shrunk because we were too small. We must recover the capacity to wonder and be in awe. And we must resist the urge to control, to manage, or to fix the mystery. We should not reduce the divine to our own small definitions, but instead be open to its autonomy and its capacity to surprise us. We must be open to all dimensions of experience, the dark as well as the light, the sorrow as well as the joy. As one poet wrote, divinity must live within herself. And as we seek connection with the divine, we must also remember that we are all connected to each other. We are here to reflect back to each other, to challenge each other, to enlarge each other's sense of reality. The world extends as far as our noses only as long as the other remains silent. But when the other insists on being other, we are obliged to enlarge our view. This is the most precious gift that is offered in the context of a relationship. We must also recognize that there is a deeper layer, a participation mystique, a dynamic interplay of the unconscious between us. We bring our unique histories, our own private understandings to every interaction. The psychological history is dynamic, operative at all times, outside the control of our conscious minds. It includes not only what has happened to us, but how that history has been internalized. So, let us not seek for perfection in our relationships, or for a magical other to take care of us. Let us rather be courageous in our willingness to be with the difficulties of life. Let us embrace the paradox of relationship, the tension between the desire for fusion and the imperative of individuation. Let us be present to ourselves, to our partners, and to the world around us. Let us be open to the beauty, the mystery, and the challenges that life has to offer. For in the end, we must all learn to carry our own burdens. It is a difficult task, but it is the only way to become truly ourselves. As the poet Rilke said, we keep repeating, you alone are source. With you the world arises and your dawn gleams on each crack and crevice of our failure. Let us not forget this. Let us not squander our time. As Jung observed, life is a short episode between two great mysteries. Let us make sure we do not waste our energies in this in-between time. The task starts at home, but we must also carry it into the world.